Hey everybody, this is Rishil, and you're listening to the What is a Government podcast, the show that examines the political differences in our country and how they have impacted our constitution and society. Today, we're talking about if the central or state government should decide the environmental laws. I'm here with Ashutosh, a decentralist, and Ananth, a centralist, who are on the side of the state government and central government, respectively. Okay, first question. Anant, why do you think the central government should have authority over the laws of the environment?
First off, the central government would be able to require much needed environmental laws across the whole country, so rather than enforcing them to individual states. So what really matters here is the political interests of the states themselves. And this in the United States especially, that's Democrat versus Republican. And environmental laws should be passed in partisanship, so they need unanimous central authority to ratify them, which basically means that we need everyone on the same page in the House and within the higher branches of the government in order to pass effective laws that would actually help the environment.
Alright, okay. So, Ashutosh, why do you think the state government should have authority over the law pertaining to the environment?
So my view is really based on the economy of each respective state. So if a state is based on agriculture, like um, their like their economy is based on just farming, then it would need laws that um, help its economy and its environment at like the same level. So, but if a state has a economy based on technology or industrial plants, then it would need laws that don't intrude on this economy. Like for example, if one a state is based on just factories and stuff, it can't be about you have to have zero carbon emissions or something like that. That would just destroy the state's economy, and it would intrude on their entire liberty.
Alright, okay. So, now, a statistic according to the Pew Research Center's graph on the positive and negative views on government shows that the citizens' view was that the federal government is poorly handling the responsibility of protecting the environment. So, what are your thoughts on this?
So I'll go first. That's why that is one of like one more reason why I think the state governments should be deciding the laws and regulations of these types of problems. With the inclusion of states in this matter of this problem, each state is able to specialize laws to their respective environments, and the normal citizen thinks that the federal government is not handling the issue correctly. That just shows how the federal government is really incapable of doing it on a because of their large scale. They have to focus on other issues. They can't just focus on environmental issues all the time. That's what the states are for smaller things.
Okay, Anant, what do you think about this?
Well, frankly, most of these assumptions are made on a baseless idea, and that baseless idea is that the federal government hasn't really taken action at all over the past 2 decades, which is far from the truth. Statistics actually tell us that the agreement between Republicans and Democrats has only increased when it comes to environmental regulation, especially over the last 2 decades. And the EPA's overall spending budget has increased nearly 27% since the start of the century, that being in the year 2000. And that's according to the EPA themselves. So the federal government is allocating enough money and resources, and actually, I would argue, putting more than they should on environmental regulation on the state and local levels. So that uh, argument can really be dismissed.
Alright, okay, interesting. So, now let's go to a law, the Clean Air Act, which was passed in 1963 to control air pollution and it phased out the production and use of chemicals that contribute to the hole in the ozone layer and reduce the lead content in gasoline, which has cut lead air pollution by 92% since 1980. So what do you think about this? What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I think that the Clean Air Act is a great example of the federal government working with individual states to tackle an environmental problem. So this is called cooperative federalism, and in this instance, it shows that we can achieve something with partisanship and proper organization in the House and the Senate. Uh, when when environmental regulation is decided upon at the federal level, federal money and resources can support states' individual needs. So, in that sense, if money is coming from the a higher authority, the federal government, right, that money spending pool is going to be higher using federal money, and that can be allocated to each state's individual needs. So that leaves no question about which policies should be enforced because the main policies are coming from the federal government, and that they're leaving it up to the states to enforce those policies while contributing significant amounts of money, and that's how it should be run. And the Clean Air Act was a great example of that.
So before you end off, I got a rebuttal to that. So you talk about how the federal money is given to the states and all, and that's how it should run, and the states enforce it. But you're not saying that the states are forced to enforce it on some occasions. Like this is called categorical grants and block grants and mandates. So the federal government like basically says, we'll give you money, but you have to do this or else we just won't give it to you. That basically forces the government, state and local governments, to be to enforce those laws to help their economy or their infrastructure or whatever. So that's all I had to say.
All right.
Yeah, and I totally get where you're coming from. There should be a compromise between the federal and the state government. There definitely should be a compromise, but overarchingly, it should be up to the federal government to enforce those laws. Just because there's too much of a gray area in between when leaving it up to the states rather than the federal government.
All right. Okay. So ending off, the last question comes from a viewer. So they ask, don't you think that the state and federal government should work together for the common good of the American people? Anand, you can answer first.
Well, coming off what I just said, yeah, I fully support that. The federal government cooperating with state governments is great as long as there's certain boundaries that the states cannot individually cross without seeking approval from the federal government. And if we do this, if we really execute this to the manner from which I'm saying, accountability is demanded and environmental laws that impact our whole country are firmly decided upon in the House, and a partisan common ground is reached, which is so important if we really want to make an impact on our environment going forward into 2050 and beyond that.
Ashutosh, what
Okay,
about you?
so I firmly disagree. I think this is absurd, and this podcast is for federalists who think that the power should stay in their hands and only the central government. The separation of powers between the federal government and the state government was made for this very reason by our framers of the Constitution. I think that people should vote on a referendum if the states or central government should decide on these issues. These issues was really just affect the citizens and not just the governments and all. So I think a referendum would be the biggest solution and not just the states taking all the power.
All right. Okay. So now ending it off. In a nutshell, the federal government and the state government have overlapping beliefs in the environment. The state government does not have as much power compared to the national government, based on the decentralist, who is Ashutosh. But on the other hand, the centralist, who is Ananth Iyer, holds the stance that the current attitude towards environmental regulation should remain as it is, in order to ensure that the government can effectively work with individual states. Thank you so much for Thank you so much for listening to this podcast, What is the Government? And make sure to tune into next week for the next podcast topic. Thank you.